Why me? Why is this happening again? I'm all alone. There's no one that can help me. I'm gonna be like this forever. Newsflash, get these negative loops out of your head. Today's video is gonna be all about porn isolation and how it's almost a paradox to where it keeps you trapped in your head, but it's also something where you have to be comfortable with being isolated. And so I'm gonna dive into more deeply exactly how porn isolation keeps the addiction rolling, but how simultaneously you're really not comfortable being isolated with yourself. And so it's gonna be a good video. I have another intro section that we'll hop into here quickly, but it's gonna continue through the video also talking about how to really not only get out of your own head, but really get into a syndicate, get into a group. And this idea how you think, and we think, I should say, as guys, like, oh, I can handle this on my own, I don't need this. And I thought that way for a long time. And realizing that it's okay to kind of reach your hand out, to get help, to be part of a group. And when you can really talk, a lot of that negative looping, a lot of that negative energy that's pulling you back into femdom addiction, pulling you back into porn addiction, that will largely be dissolved away just by being able to talk about it. So hop on a call, hop in the group, leave a comment, because likely you feel like there's no one to talk to about this. You feel like you're stuck battling yourself. And by getting into a community where it's like-minded guys that are going through the same thing that you are going through, and yes, there's lots of other guys that are going through the exact same thing. There's different levels of porn addiction. There's different types of femdom. There's different kind of, whatever you want to call it, niches or subgenres within it. And but more or less, they're all addictions. We all face them. And so realizing that adversity is not the enemy, you want the ups and the downs, and realizing that that's what creates a lot of the meaning in life. You always hear me talk about this idea of you want the lows and you can't get the highs without the lows. Anyway, let's hop into the intro section, then to the rest of the video. Might be a bit of a longer video, but I hope you guys like it, and I'll see you there. How it's really keeping you not only isolated up in your mind, but it's also keeping you isolated in this feeling of how I always talk about your double agent mentality. Like, you're walking around and you're going about your daily life and no one knows that you have this addiction. And so you're essentially living in secrecy. You are living this double agent lifestyle. And while I'm kind of just using that as a funny term to joke around with, it's actually a very serious issue, because you have this isolation. And anytime you have an addiction and you feel the isolation surrounding that addiction, meaning you're not part of a group, you're not part of a support network, you feel like you don't have people to talk to, you feel like the addiction can easily consume you. All of this kind of isolated mentality, it further drives you into the addiction. And so by getting into the groups, the coaching, the courses, get involved even just in Valhalla Syndicate, you will start to be part of a support network. I'll be there to back you up, and you'll be able to get out of your head, and you'll at least have this kind of momentum associated with not feeling like you're alone in the fight. And by you getting out of isolation, it's really one of the first steps. And I honestly believe that the isolation is why so many porn addicts stay addicted to porn is that they feel like there's nobody to talk to. There's no way to vent their kind of dark energy, to get out of their head, to express themselves, and so they end up just continuing to relapse, to stay addicted, and it just becomes that endless vicious cycle. So this is just the little intro section of the video, and kind of holding the camera all wonky, but I'm gonna walk down here, grab the tripod, and we're gonna set up and really go in depth into not only this idea of isolation and why you got to get out of it and start joining into, you know, communities and groups. And it's also one of the whole bases, just made up a word, to AA. Like if you look at traditional Alcoholics Anonymous, it is really based around the 12-step process, but a lot of it is really around community and group building is where a lot of those core ideas come from. And so it really is a critical part. And another quick thing that I'll mention is that I was always very egotistical in the sense of, oh, I don't need someone else's help, I can handle this on my own. Well, it actually turned out that I couldn't really handle it on my own. And most people can't. You know, when you're left to yourself, when you're sitting in your room after you're done with that day of work or whatever, it's really hard if you're not part of a syndicate, of a group of guys that have been through that struggle, that are going to help back you up. If you're not part of that, it's really easy to just stay in the isolation. And I also want to dive into, in the second half of the video, you can hear the cicadas buzzing as it is late August. So I don't know, I used to not like them, but I actually kind of think that sounds cool now. But the second half of the video, I want to dive into this idea of realizing that adversity is a good thing. And it's really easy to just say, well, oh man, my life sucks, I wish that I was different, I wish that, you know, things weren't like this, I wish I didn't have these addictions. But I can actually tell you that once we work through these things, and I can get you to the other side, we get to the other side, you start to see the beauty in life. You start to realize that there's so much more than just derping out in your room, staying addicted to porn or femdom, whatever addictions that we have. Everyone has an addiction. So everyone has adversity. And it's not about trying to get rid of these things, but realizing how can you then use them to your advantage. And I always talk about that springboard effect, to where you can actually come out of an addiction. And I actually did this many times with relapses myself, where I didn't like it that I was relapsing, but I would come out and I'm going to use that as even more fuel, as even more motivation to get to the next level. And so eventually we'll get to the point to where you're not going to have to worry about relapsing again. Like, you'll just get to the point where you're such a boss, a badass, that you've gotten this stuff handled. But let me try to not drop my phone. It's actually like a cliff. I was hanging that over there. That's probably a bad idea. Let me just set this down like this. So eventually we're going to get to the point where you don't have to worry about that. But in the meantime, remember that adversity is a good thing, and life would actually be quite boring without it, and you actually wouldn't want it. Now, it doesn't mean that you want to be a hardcore porn addict or hardcore femdom addict, but it means that you can appreciate the ups and the downs. And so if you follow my stuff, you know that I'm always talking about, trying to balance this camera here, the idea of you want to enjoy the journey, you want to enjoy the process. And so it's the same thing when it comes to a porn addiction, right? The ultimate goal is to get it handled, but realize that along the way, acknowledging and even appreciating that there's going to be the lows, and your highs can't come without those lows. They're crucial. And when you can realize that too, it takes a lot of that power away from that relapse, and you reclaim a lot of that power. And so I think I'm going to wrap that as the intro here. It was a bit longer than I wanted. This will probably be a longer video. Let me know again too what your take on what your opinion is, I should say, on the formatting. Like, do you like the longer type of videos? Do you like those little shorts? I made a couple of those shorts recently. I kind of like the shorts. It's just like a quick idea, a bit of like motivation. And then, you know, these longer videos kind of dive into some deeper topics, but this is a long enough of an introduction. So just to recap, today's video is going to be on porn isolation, and then we're going to dive into why you want adversity and how to use the challenges to claw your way to the next paradigm, to the next level of consciousness, and realize that you want to be part of a group, you want to have challenges in your life, and everybody faces these things. You're going to get out of porn addiction, you're going to get out of femdom addiction, you're going to get out of whatever other addiction it is that you have. I have full confidence in you, and without further ado, let's hop into the main content portion of this video, and I will see you guys there. All right, so this first part of porn isolation that I really want to dive into is the feeling like there's this void in yourself, like you're not good enough, like there's always something that you're trying to seek out. I need this. I'll be complete when I jerk off and come. I'll be complete when I watch this porn video. And let's get this clear here. It's just searching for thin air. There's nothing that can ever be reached or accomplished. And in fact, by you continuing to stay addicted to porn or addicted to femdom, and I kind of link those two together, there's kind of little intricacies between the two, but by you continuing, well, just for the sake of this video, call it porn addiction, for you to continue to stay addicted to porn, not only, right, is it going to stay the same, your life is actually going to get worse. As I always say, these addictions are degenerative, meaning you're not going to just keep on jerking off 2 hours per day. You're going to go to 3 hours. You're going to spend more money on porn. You're going to spend more time on porn. You're going to watch crazier types of porn. It's degenerative over time. Like any addiction, it gets worse. You got to up the ante to get the same level of high. Then, you know, you burn yourself out there, so you got to up the ante again to get the same level of high. Burn out there, keep upping the ante. And it's that way with all addictions. And so from here, realizing that this isolation, it's kind of this paradox, because on the one hand, you're in porn isolation because you feel like there's nobody to talk to. You feel like you're not part of a group. Why is that? I don't want to say it's because they don't exist, because these groups do exist, right? You can actively choose to join the Valhalla Syndicate, which I highly recommend. It's a personal development group on Facebook. Lots of guys in there. And it's a place where you can feel like you can vent ideas, where you can express yourself and just belong to a group. And furthering this idea of isolation, when you feel like you're alone, not only are you now trapped up in your head, but it's kind of actually a paradox here. And I'm going to try and not make this too complicated, but what I'm trying to articulate is, what exactly am I trying to articulate? Trying to figure it out myself. But the idea is that on the one hand, you're isolated in your own head, but on the other hand, you're not okay with this isolation. So you're always trying to seek out this external stimuli, in this case, porn, and trying to watch more, because not only do you feel isolated because there's no one to talk to, or you're not part of a group, you're not part of a syndicate, you're not part of other guys that can help bring you up, but not only because are you isolated because of that, but now you're isolated in your own head, and you're not okay with that kind of negative self that you have, and so you seek out more porn in order to numb that. So I felt like picking the camera up and walking a little bit here. So let's back it up for a second and recap here. Let's say we've got porn isolation. Now, when we look at that, the first point of isolation is that you feel like you don't belong to a group, or basically what I'm trying to say is that you feel like there's nobody to talk to, work through these ideas, and you feel like you're living in secrecy. And it's really one of the major sinister parts with addiction, is that we feel like we can't let anybody know, especially when it comes to porn, because most likely as a guy, you think, well, my ego's gonna be shattered. If people know the true me, no one's gonna like me, or I'm going to get ousted, exiled. I'm going to be looked down upon. My friends won't like me. My family won't like me. Everyone's gonna hate me. And so I have to keep this buried deep down inside of me, and no one can ever know. And I can only really drown my sorrows at night in my room, all alone, with my lube and my coconut oil and my porn and my fleshlight. Whatever. The point is, you're living in secrecy, and by you being able to just talk about it, it could even, like I said, you can start, if you don't feel comfortable joining in to a group, if you don't want to take some of the courses or work with me directly or hop on a coaching call, then start by simply getting a piece of paper or a journal and writing down some of these ideas that are coming into your head. Because the idea is we want to get you out of your head. You're staying trapped in your head, and it's really festering the addiction. So that's the first part of porn isolation. Now, let's flip over to the second part. The second part is that you are not comfortable with being isolated. And that's why I'm saying this is kind of a paradox, because on the one hand, you want to get out of isolation, and you do that by really joining other guys that are trying to do the same thing that you're doing. You want to join like-minded people. That's why AA works. That's why a lot of guys that are bosses get involved in like team sports or things where you're with other people that are trying to bring you up, right? You don't want to stay addicted to porn. So you want to join people that have overcome and know how to get to the finish line of what you're trying to do. And that way, not only do you have the accountability, but you can just simply get there much faster. And when you do feel like you fall off a little bit, I'll be there, and the whole syndicate is going to be there to lift you up. Rising tide lifts all ships. That's what the syndicate is all about. Okay, so that's number one. The second part, let's get more focused here. I have a hard time doing that sometimes. Second part is that you're isolated and you're not okay with being isolated. Now, on the one hand, you're hearing me say, well, you need to join a group and you need to get out of your head. That's true. But you also need to be comfortable with actually being isolated as well. But that doesn't mean that because you're not okay with being isolated, you seeking out porn to numb that feeling of isolation. And the feeling of isolation really comes down to, if you haven't worked on yourself, if you're not headed in the right direction, well, when you're alone, AKA isolated, of course you feel like shit, because you have anxiety, because you have self-doubt, or maybe you have shame that you're not trying to work on your addiction, or you're not living the life that you should be. And so because all those negative self-loops are going on, because you have all this negative energy, you are much more likely to then, when you are finally by yourself, like at the end of the day, when you get home into your room, or whenever it is that you're doing a lot of your porn consumption, once you get to that stage, now you're not okay with being alone. So what do? You try to numb it with more porn. You think, oh, if I just watch this. It's the same person who is addicted to alcohol. It's typically why they're doing it, or heroin, or food. It's they're trying to numb, to escape this being isolated with themselves. You're not okay with just sitting with yourself. And so you need to be comfortable not only with sitting with yourself. And how do you do this? There's so many different ways. And again, hop into the groups, take the courses. I'll show you and walk you exactly through how I did this. Because honestly, all these videos, I struggle with this stuff myself, and it's things that I wish I had known, and I've worked through them now, and I can show you how to do the same thing. But it's hard when you're not part of that group. But anyway, staying on this idea of you not being okay with yourself, that's really where a lot of this cause of continuing to watch the porn endlessly happens, is because you are just not comfortable with that being alone with yourself. So you have to be able to pause and say, okay, maybe I'm not okay with myself, but I'm gonna, for a little bit, just sit with this feeling. And you know what? For once, I'm not just going to impulsively go on to Pornhub or impulsively go on to whatever porn site you prefer and just impulsively, I can't sit with myself. I need to numb it. I need to numb it. I need to jerk off. Oh. And then that lasts, all of about 10 minutes. And then you're right back, or even further back to where you just were. So you need to begin to start sitting with yourself and realizing that you need to be okay with being a little bit uncomfortable at first. And it really is one of the first steps into this being okay with being isolated. So on the one hand, before we hop into the next part, we want to be searching for groups of like-minded people that are trying to do the same things that we're doing. That's one of the major things. If you're trying to learn any new skill or accomplish anything in a timely manner, sorry, I'm moving this all over the place, you want to surround yourself with other people that are trying to do the same thing and that are going to be there to support you. Sounds like kind of a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised at how many people really don't do that, and it's one of the big things why they don't succeed. The second part, you have to start learning to just sit with yourself, and we can work with these things more. Doing the guided releases in the courses is a great way to do it. I also have free ones right here, believe it or not, on this channel. This video is going to be doing a quick guided release, and if you've never done one of these with me, they're a big part of the courses and of getting to the root cause of addiction. And we're just going to do a very basic one tonight, and it's going to be very quick. But if you hop into some of the courses and the coaching, and I have some more posted in the groups as well, we can dive into them even more deeply. So what I want you to just do now is very simply sit down somewhere in a comfortable position, nice quiet place, somewhere where you're not going to be disturbed, where you can really just sink into the present moment. And you can sit down, you can lie down, doesn't really matter. And I want you to close your eyes. And what we're going to do is several sessions of pranic breathing, and it's going to go with a cadence, and that just means we're going to go with the tempo of inhaling for 3. Actually, let me rephrase that. Let's do this one. Let's go with inhale for 6, hold for 3, exhale for 6, and then hold for 3. And we're going to do several cycles of this. And when it comes to really diving into why you feel isolated, and both realizing that you're going to be able to take action and get out of your head, but also it's okay to sit with yourself and really be okay, and really ask yourself, why don't you feel okay with sitting with yourself? Why do you feel like you need to keep on numbing yourself with porn? Why do you feel like you keep on relapsing and going back and diving into that? So remember, comfortable position, eyes are closed, and we're going to go inhale for 6, hold for 3, exhale for 6, hold for 3. And so let's begin now with our first cycle, beginning with the inhale of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hold for 3, 2, 3, exhale for 6, hold for 3, and then breathe normally. And really trying to think to yourself, why do I not feel comfortable with myself? Why am I unsure of myself? Why do I have self-doubt? Why am I not okay with not being okay? Why do I have to seek out massive pleasure and numbness in porn addiction? You begin to ask yourself these questions. And now that we've asked ourselves these questions, let's just do a quick body scan, starting with the bottom of our feet, feeling the ground beneath us, and moving on up into our legs and the chair or the ground that you're sitting in, and up into your hands and your arms, moving on up into your shoulders and your neck and your head, and just doing a complete body scan, breathing into every cell in your body and really trying to just feel at peace. And even if you don't, being okay with not feeling great, and remembering that it's okay to feel strange. It's okay to feel anxiety, to feel uncomfortable, to have self-doubt, and that we don't always need to be trying to seek out pleasure to try to escape from these feelings, and trying to numb them is not the answer. And when we can just momentarily sit with this, what you'll find is that oftentimes these feelings only last for a couple of seconds and then they just pass on by. And oftentimes, because we are always trying to numb the sensation, it keeps on persisting. Whatever you resist persists. And so by being able to sit with this here right now, you may find that it actually simply just, you acknowledge it and it passes right on by, just like it's flowing right down the river. You see it and it's just on its way. You don't try to do anything to it, you just let it pass by, you look at it, and then it's gone. Now let's get ready for another cycle of chronic breathing, and let's begin now with the inhale of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold for 3. Exhale for 6. 5, 6. Hold for 3. And breathe normally. And realizing again that it's okay feeling some of the darkness dissipate, feeling some of the self-doubt dissipate, realizing that you have infinite potential, that having adversity is fine. We want the lows, we want the struggle, we want the hardship. We don't want to stay in the same hardship our entire life, but in certain periods of our life, we're presented challenges, and it is up to you to overcome that challenge, to step up to the plate and to say that I can handle this, I am worthy, I am enough, I can do this. And when you do that, when you look at these as challenges, they're things to overcome. These are not addictions that you have to suffer with your entire life. You want the challenge, and you will overcome it. Let's get ready for another cycle, really breathing as deeply as you can, trying to feel all the elements of your body, all the oxygen, all the energy pouring in. Let's inhale now on the count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold for 3. Exhale for 6. Hold for 3. And then breathe normally. Feeling the energy flowing unencumbered throughout your body. Feeling like you're able to handle whatever comes your way. And even if you do have setbacks, they're merely just bumps in the road. And every single human that has ever lived and that ever will live will have bumps in the road, will have challenges. Now the question is, are you willing to overcome these challenges? Are you willing to accept them? Are you willing to use them to your advantage? And let's do one more cycle of breaths, really breathing as deeply as we can. We'll start now on the count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold for 3. Exhale for 6. Hold for 3. And then breathe normally. And let's just begin to bring awareness back into the room, back into your feet on the floor, back into yourself in the chair, your hands, your shoulders, your neck, your head, all the different parts of your body. Bringing awareness back in and realizing that you can handle the challenge. You are going to handle the challenge. You're going to come out of this on the other side. And now let's bring awareness fully back into the room. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that little guided release, and I've got literally like hundreds of these to dive into if you want to hop into the groups and the programs, or as I call them, the courses. So if you want to dive much further into the power of going through a lot of this release work, something that I've worked on a lot myself. I study it, and I think that it really helps a lot in the long term. And you'd be surprised as you start diving in how much negativity you're holding, how much pent up emotion, trauma, energy that's stuck in you, that once you release it, let go of it, you'll find that a lot of times these compulsions, feeling like you need to chase the porn addiction, a lot of it simply goes away. It doesn't usually just happen overnight. It's like a process. I always say that, but it's this repeated going in, diving in, releasing, letting go, getting triggered again, figuring out why, diving in, releasing, letting go, and then continuing that. And over time, you start to realize what your triggers are, whether they be people, places, things, trauma that happened that you can release, certain negative, false paradigms that you believed in your life that you can release. And over time, as you get better and better at this stuff, it's like you keep on going up a step, releasing the junk, getting lighter, getting smarter, getting more centered, going up a step. And it's that process of continuing to go up another step and go up another step. And sometimes you go down a step. Sometimes you go up 2 steps. And over time, we're going up the staircase. And just realizing that another thing to do, and as I said earlier, and I'm just kind of chilled back now, it's because it is getting later, and I'll probably classify this as one of the late night sessions. I don't know, it doesn't really matter. I'd make playlists, and I'm always like which category should this video go in, but maybe it'll go in multiple categories: porn addiction, late night session, and a double dip there on the playlist. Not that that matters at all, just thinking out loud. But as I was saying, it is getting a little bit late, so that's why I'm a little more chilled back here as opposed to earlier. And I also think that, again, hop into the House Syndicate. I'm there to bring you up. You know, when you feel like you're relapsing, and I had an interesting coaching call earlier today, talked about the whole idea of get on Telegram, get in the Facebook group, message me on Instagram, whatever you have social media wise or whatever it is that you feel comfortable with, hop on there and connect with me, because you can even just shoot me a message and be like, yo, I feel like I'm about to relapse or this happened. And I'm more than happy to back you up, give you motivation, take you through a guided release, hop on a free coaching call. More than happy to do that. And oftentimes you'll find that, like I said, just by being able to talk through things a little bit, you get out of that secrecy, that double lifestyle. You have to become congruent. Realize that there's nothing wrong with you, but this living in secrecy, the lies, the holding this dark energy, that's what's keeping you grounded, or I should say really trapped, because that's really what it is, in this addiction, feeling like you're not comfortable with yourself. So you got to seek out the massive amounts of porn to numb yourself, you know what I mean? And then you feel even worse, so you got to seek out even more. And then that's not doing it even more, so you got to seek out even crazier types of porn. And then that has to go even worse, and you know what I'm saying, you just start spiraling downward. You got to get you out of that downward spiral. Anyway, I think that'll be it for tonight's video. Longer video, covered a lot of different stuff, but begin to realize that you got to become more congruent. You have to be okay to sit with yourself and go through this guided release again if you want to. You can always come back to it at a later point. And then reach out to me into the groups, into the courses, into the coaching, and realize that in order to really get it handled, you have to get yourself in groups with like-minded guys. Otherwise, I really believe you'll keep on relapsing. At least 90% of people will. And we're all the same. It's not that there's anything wrong with you. These are just the ways that you can actively target it, figure out, express yourself, get out of your head, be part of the community, learn from other people that have accomplished what you're looking to accomplish. That's how you learn things quickly. And if you don't want to learn things quickly, then you can try to, struggle with it and be in your own despair, but I've spent a lot of time working on this, reading books on addiction, taking courses, thinking, philosophizing, meditating, working out, trying everything. I know all the ins and outs when it comes to personal development, addiction, porn addiction, femdom addiction. I've struggled with all these things, and so I'm always thinking, how can I make this as efficient for you guys, as wholesome, as healing, as uplifting as I can. And I really want the best for all of you guys, because I think that you have so much potential. You have a lot of crap that you've accumulated. You've got a lot of things that we need to work on, but you have so much potential, and even if you can just start to uncover a little bit of it, you'll be an incredibly different person, and ultimately everybody else around you benefits, including you. So begin to become comfortable with you. There's nothing wrong with you. Learn to take the challenge, fight through the adversity, and join the groups and get backed up with other like-minded guys, by myself. Get backed up, have accountability, begin to express yourself, stop staying so trapped up in your own head, and stop numbing yourself to endless amounts of porn which are not serving or helping you in any way at all. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll be back very, very soon. I love all you guys. You guys are amazing. You have the power within you. And we will talk very soon. I'm out.